Time now for more ceiling versus floor, and this time we're highlighting the NFC North. That's Bears, Lions, Packers, and Vikings. And unlike the AFC North, which we just did, no new head coaches, so we have similar faces and a lot of similar records last season. But of course, that is in the past. We are looking ahead. Ryan Wilson and Emery Hunt back here with us. So now the onus is on Emery to give us the ceiling and floor, and Ryan to react to it. So let's start with the Bears. Caleb Williams taking them to their first playoff win since 2010. Emery, you have the ceiling at 14-3 and the floor 11-6. That's some high expectations.
Well, Emily, listen, last year there was a debonair brother that was on this network that told everyone that the Bears were going to win the division, go from worst to first. So everyone is scooching at me. I'm going to tell you this again, so get your pencils. This is what I'm saying. The Bears going high again because second year Ben Johnson's system. What I love most about this offense, they can run the football when they want to. That is huge. And now, just opposed to what they did last year and how they lost that playoff game, that's all the motivation they need to go into the offseason. The concern would be if they can't get consistent pass rush outside of Montez Sweat. Austin Booker, high ascending player, so we'll see if he can handle that duty. But right now, this Bears team, I think, is one of the more complete teams in this division. Less questions about the Bears than anyone else. Plus, they improved their offensive line. Logan Jones out of Iowa, and also like undrafted rookie free agent Jaron Kump out of Utah too. So I think they've done a lot. They've done better than what people expect the team to do, and I feel like they'll be right atop the division once again.
Yeah, Emily, I don't think Emery understood the assignment because it's floor and ceiling. So maybe, if you're 3.5 feet tall, you can fit in that little space between 14 and 11 wins. Look, man, I went through this process as well. I have them winning 14 games, best case scenario. They can reel off 7. They can go 7-0 to start the season. But worst case, I had them closer to 8-9 just because I understood the definition of worst. They could lose very easily games in that division against really good football teams. They have some tough road games. They have some tough out-of-division games because they're the #1 seed coming into this season. And I fully expect Ben Johnson and Caleb to continue to grow that relationship. But we've seen good teams for number of reasons, struggle when the expectations were so high. I do think that Emery's right. They're going to win a lot more games than they lose. But if the wheels fall off, I think worst case would still be 8-9, which at the end of the day, that puts you in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, I think even Bears fans are looking at this like, whoa, the floor is 11 wins for us, but that's because they've experienced many years of a much deeper floor there. Ryan, I think you're going to like this segment here. Let's go to the Lions. They missed out on the playoffs after finishing last in the division. Still a winning record, though, so this is the ceiling floor. Ceiling is 10-7, floor 9-8, Emery.
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't see much of room for this Lions team to bottom out because of how they're coached and what they get from their head football coach and what they're getting from their offense. You still got Jahmyr Gibbs running the football, one of the more dynamic backs in the game. Jared Goff is still Jared Goff. He's still going to find Amon-Ra St. Brown and J-Mo down the field deep for a touchdown. The concern here for Detroit, and we saw this concern last year, and they still went 9-8. The concern is whether or not the new pieces along the offensive line can gel quickly and defensively, despite the acquisitions they made within the front seven and also in the secondary. How healthy is Brian Branch? How healthy is Kirby Joseph? Those two coming back would be instrumental for this team hitting more of their ceiling as opposed to fighting for their floor, because as long as you could run the football and play defense, and as long as I'm able to inhale and exhale, I will scream this to the mountaintop, that running the ball and playing good defense will keep you in ball games, and therefore they will find a way to win. Plus, they got good special teams too. So yes, the floor 9-8.
How about this, Emily? My ceiling and floor is 8-9. That's going to be the same thing. Not realistically, when I went through this process, I actually like the Lions a lot more than Emery does, best case scenario. I had them potentially winning 14 games if everything falls into place. I had them reeling off 13 in a row after going 1-1 to start the season. If you look at the schedule there, it sort of opens up a little bit. If they get hot, they can certainly come together. Worst case, I had a little more variation than Emery. They could hit a rough patch. Like the last month of the season, they could lose out, and they could end up 7-10. You talk about the Vikings, Giants, Bears, and Packers. That Vikings game would certainly have to be a big win for Minnesota, but the Giants could be better. The Bears are going to be better. The Packers are going to be good. But Emery is right about the secondary concerns with the injuries. The offensive line, you got Cade Mays and Blake Miller as potential new starters. And then, of course, we're living in a world now where Drew Petzing is the OC. Last year, the OC didn't work out quite so well in a post-Ben Johnson world. So I think there's a little more variation, but I'm a little higher on the Lions than Emery is. I think they could get to 14 as opposed to 10 for their high water mark.
See, Ryan's giving himself more wiggle room to be wrong, but Emery is 10 toes down, fully committed to what these final records are going to be. A little bit more variation with the Packers, who finished second in the AFC North thanks to that tie. 11-6, the ceiling. 9-8, once again, the floor.
Yeah, I'll humor you guys for at least 9 seconds and say maybe 8 and 9, right? But the 8 and 9, 9 and 8 part really is predicated on Micah Parsons coming back, and when does he come back, and what type of effectiveness he will have when he comes back. And the other concern for Green Bay is something that we've seen throughout the time they've been there under Matt LaFleur is the injuries and consistency. Every other week is a different wide receiver that stood out the previous week, and now he's out this week. Can they find consistent health across the board? We saw the off-the-field issue with Josh Jacobs in the backfield. Can they find consistency in the backfield opposite of Josh Jacobs? And that's the biggest key here for them. So, but when everything is clicking, everything is right, they lost some key pieces defensively, but they still have enough weaponry on both sides of the ball to hit their ceiling. But I'm more along the lines of thinking they could be hitting the floor here at 9 and 8.
Yeah, I'm not too far north of where Emery is. I think 12 wins seems realistic if they get up to a red-hot start. They could conceivably go 9-0 if everything comes together. Emery talked about some of the concerns, specifically injuries with Micah Parsons coming back from that. They don't know what the running back situation is going to be with Josh Jacobs, and he's not able to play early on. They have a hole in that running back room. And, of course, the wide receivers, now that they've moved on from so many of these young players, and then the expectations for Matthew Golden going into year 2. Worst case, a little more further south than Emery 9-8, 7-10, not that much different. But there could be a stretch there when you talk about the Falcons, Bucks, Bears, and Cowboys, and then the Lions game. They can lose 4 out of 5 of those games in the middle of the schedule starting at week 4, and that could be a turning point if things aren't coming together, if the offense isn't gelling, if Micah Parsons isn't back to form. So not that far off from Emery, a few more losses and one more win in the best and worst case scenarios.
All right, so Emery, the Vikings are kind of interesting here because you have them with the same ceiling and floor, 11-6 and 9-8. And me looking at from the outside looking in, you know, they don't know who their quarterback is going to be, so I expect a little bit more variation. Why is there not as much variation with the Vikings despite that unknown?
Emily, they played 10-11 last year and went 9-8. No one played quarterback for them last year based on productivity. But I feel strongly more confident in Minnesota than I do Green Bay. And I love the fact that this defense, which was 7th in total defense last year, I feel like it's going to be top 3 because you add Caleb Banks out of Florida, you add Big Citrus, Dominique Orange out of Iowa State along the defensive line. That's going to free up so many opportunities for those pass rushers on the outside. Now, that also adds to a little bit of the concern. Can Dallas Turner, former first-round pick, take those next steps and reach double-digit sack territory? He had 8 sacks last year. And if that's the case, the defense will keep them and win a few games for the Vikings. Now, the offensive side of the ball with Kyler Murray, this is arguably the most balanced offense he's had as a pro. They can block well up front. They have a run game. You have a quarterback whisperer and Kevin O'Connell as the head coach, and you have elite talent at wide receiver and tight end. All Kyler Murray has to do is play his 111, and I think that is enough for them to crush this ceiling, get 11 wins, maybe even challenge the Bears because of how great this defense is going to be.
No, I'm with you on the 11-6. Everything has to fall into place perfectly. And to your point, Emily, one of those quarterbacks has to step up. I'm not willing to gamble that you can go back-to-back years without a quarterback, worst case scenario, and still stumble your way to 9 wins. That, to me, especially in this division, is asking a lot of a defense, no matter how good they are. And I think Emery's right. I think this is a lights-out defense, and Brian Flores continues to get the best out of that unit. But at some point, your offense, especially in the NFC North, has to step up. And Kevin O'Connell is the quarterback whisperer forever unless that quarterback is named J.J. McCarthy. So you hope that Kyler Murray returns to form, not the form last year when he was banged up and couldn't win his job back from Jacoby Brissett, because I think 6-11 is more likely if everything falls apart in that incredibly tough division. But again, 11 wins is not off the table if you play perfect football week in and week out. That's just a huge ask over 18 weeks of a football season.
Yeah, you called it an incredibly tough division. A great way to describe it, with the floor being very high for all of these teams. Emery and Ryan, we appreciate you playing along with the ceiling versus floor. Look at the disrespect for the defending division champs. They have the third highest odds, the Bears that is, to win the division at plus 330. Kind of rude. Lions, the favorite to finish on top of the NFC North, but it feels very tight in anybody's game at this point.
No doubt.